What's up, guys? Hello. I'm trying this setup right now because I kind of like it, and I have this like tripod, so I'm gonna go for it. I normally never have a tripod. I'm normally like holding my phone, or I'm like propping it up the whole time. Let's try this. Hello. Hello. I feel like you're coming. Oh, Jordana, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad we're all here. The chair is extremely comfortable. Thank you. Feel cold after a little water adventure? I do. It was actually amazing. I highly recommend it. It was, it felt fantastic. My feet were freezing, but Tess and I were prepared. We brought extra shoes. Some people don't. They make you wear your shoes so that your feet don't get too cold or something. So, or if there's things in the water, they want people to cut their feet, so they make you wear shoes. We brought extra shoes. We were smart. Or we were just informed. Some people weren't informed. Oh, thanks. I'm cozy right now because I was cold. Oh, Eileen, well, happy birthday. And yeah, go when you gotta go. We did not freeze the plunge. It's actually not that bad. There's a lot of adrenaline and people are really excited, and it's for a really good cause. So no, it was great. It was great. Did Tessa like it?
Yeah, I actually got such an adrenaline rush, and it was really fun.
Tessa said if you couldn't hear it, she said she got a huge adrenaline rush, and it was really fun. Woo. Okay, so, as everyone recalls, we are here to talk about something very specific. Very specific. Let me get to page 100. Oh, this is pretty much it. 105. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. Oh. Okay. All right, everyone. Hello from my... okay, everyone. My Aunt Claudia is at Versailles, this Cuban restaurant in Miami, and I'm extremely jealous right now. I would love café con leche and like... Well, I'd eat ropa vieja right now because it's like warm and delicious, but not important. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our first discussion of our new season of Rosende Reads. It's a long time coming, but we're finally here. And we are discussing part 1 today, guys. We're going to try to, I know a lot of us have read ahead, I have as well, but we're going to stick to part 1 of today. So we may have other opinions and other knowledge based on the future. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about just part 1 of A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. I'm very excited about this. And as you know, some of you don't. Triforce and Dragon, so good to see you. It's really cool to see a bunch of see all you guys again. Love this. Cute food. I know, right? The good thing is someone was handing out like whiskey shots after, so we all warmed up pretty quickly. Okay. Part 1. Tessa, you're going to be spoiled. Is that okay?
I've already been spoiled because you keep updating me.
I don't know if you guys heard that. If you didn't, that's fine. Anyways, you're going to be spoiled. So part 1 ends with that horrible and very brutal scene with Miriam Jo and her husband. You guys remember that horrible scene where he doesn't like her rice? Rashid. I thought he was gonna be like a glimmer of hope, and he ended up not being. I read the whole thing. Oh, great! Heartbroken after the end of that first part. I agree, Amy. Oh, Amy Loveson, great to see you. Me trying to remind myself it's only part 1, so not to give any spoilers. I know, that's why I keep looking at the end of it to remember, like, all right, I'm going to read the last line of part 1. Or just the last paragraph so everyone can kind of just remember. So hold on one second. I'm just going to start from after the action. I don't want to read the action again. It's too much. Miriam chewed, and something in the back of her mouth cracked. Good, Rashid said. His cheeks were quivering. Now you know what your rice tastes like. Now you know what you've given me in this marriage. Bad food and nothing else. Then he was gone, leaving Miriam to spit out pebbles, blood, and the fragments of 2 broken molars. Okay, so we're going to start as we always start. First thoughts, 1 word, short phrases. How are we feeling so far in this book? How are we feeling so far in this world of these little parts of Afghanistan? How are we feeling with these lead characters? How are we feeling with the story? How are we feeling about let's start off broad and then we'll start diving in the way we normally do. So what do we feel? What are our first word thoughts? Ana Cat Fernandez, that would be my word. Heartbroken. Thank you, Nanette. Heartbroken. Absolutely. What else we got? Heartbreaking. Yes. Horrified. Beyond horrified. Yes. Gut-wrenching. This is when I wanted to leap into the book and beat him to a pulp. He made me desire violence. I agree. Alone. Oof. That's a good one, Deborah. Thank you. Alone. Whew. Visceral reactions. Emotional roller coaster. The men are weak. Hiding behind violence and lies. Very well said. Appalled. Yeah. I agree. Heartbreaking is definitely it. Thank you, Paula. Emotional. So emotional. I agree, Kat. Roller coaster. It's something that made me reflect on my privilege constantly. Not only as someone who lives in a country where things like that are very much frowned upon, but also as a man, knowing that those questions would never... her entire story would never have been my story. And it's heartbreaking to know that this isn't a fiction. This isn't something that doesn't happen. It's not made up to scare us. This is a reality. And not just Afghanistan, but other parts of the world as well. And then now knowing the history of that country. I loved what they kind of taught us about the late 70s before the Islamic Revolution, and then with Russia going in, and then the other empires. They talked about how there were many empires that have fallen. I think starting at the Ottoman Empire that have attempted to take Afghanistan away from its people, and it's never worked. And that is a tremendous source of pride for them. But man, that part of it, you just feel terrible, and you know that a lot of what's happened, that we haven't done anything to really help. Husseini's descriptions are so visceral, yet in such simple language that you can actually picture it so clearly while you read. Thank you, George. I completely agree. I feel quite often when I'm reading this book, I don't feel a passive observer. I feel I'm in their home. I'm on the street in the market with her. When she's walking in her burqa for the first time, which we'll talk about, I felt that I was trailing behind her. I didn't feel like I was reading about it. I felt like I felt the sand on my feet. I smelled the environment. It was really, I agree, visceral and picture it, very clear. But are those things frowned upon here? Women are still battered and abused, and too many people turn a blind eye. You're not wrong at all. I guess I like to think that they are. But with the way the Supreme Court's been acting, with Walgreens not doing its job and falling under these I don't want to just put it into Republicans. We'll put it into this pro-life group that makes no sense and is all just hurting people. Yeah, you're right. People do turn a blind eye. And that's just really quickly overarching theme here. That's why we read. That's why we learn. That's why we grow. Books are so important. Okay. Imagery, amazing. Yes. Let's see. I thought the same. Miriam is so isolated in both situations, her cottage and in Kabul. I know. And it's just, you see how part of how that power structure works is the isolation, not allowing groups to form, and then you see his abuse of her in terms of Rashid not allowing her to have friends, not allowing her downstairs when people are over, things that, it's just that type of cagedness, right? I feel like a fly on the wall watching everything happening, but hopelessly unable to help. That was really well said. It makes me even more grateful my great-grandparents decided to leave a country where this was a reality. And also I have to say the I think not only the strength and all of that emotional and I don't know, for lack of a better word, strength that it takes to do that. But then I'm also thinking of just like the luck sometimes, the luck that it takes to leave a situation like that. Like how everything kind of has to work out in a way, and one thing goes wrong and it doesn't work. And I don't know, I agree. As a young woman from Austria, I'm extremely grateful that I'm not in this social and historical setting. Yeah. Hey, Carrie, welcome. Not pro-life, forced birthers. Thank you. Reality check makes me treasure my upbringing. Cool. It was a weird contradiction for me. The content matter was heartbreaking, but the writing was addictive. You wanted to keep reading. I agree. She was so unprotected emotionally and physically. Can we give her some power back really quickly, though? She's doing the best she can to make with her circumstances, and I have to say, her ability, like her resilience, is incredible. And the fact that when she finds herself cleaning after Rashid has his friends over, and she's looking through his room and she finds the gun and she finds the pornographic magazines, and you're like, I thought Rashid was pious. And then she has the whole emotional roller coaster of at first being angry, upset, and then jealous and hurt. And the fact that she's, in her mind, able to see Rashid as a person, as a human, and allow space for his humanity, while still recognizing she's allowed to feel a certain way, but also not putting that, I don't know, I was like, how is this person so emotionally intelligent, so this incredible ability? I guess emotional intelligence sometimes comes from trauma, so I guess there's that, but she has this there's this fire inside of her, this resilience that I find her to be like a really captivating protagonist. I don't just feel bad for her. Like, I want her to feel empowered. Like, I'm rooting for her. You know what I mean? Does anyone else feel that way? Is that resonating with anyone? Because that's how I feel. Like, I feel like there's something about her that I'm like, I believe in her. I'm going to keep reading through comments now. I keep catching myself thinking, why doesn't she just do this or that? Then remembering that she's in a place where she can't do these things to help herself or get help. There's no support. There's none. Honestly, I didn't read it. All right, well, you can join now. Maddie McCall, welcome. Confinement is a word. Thank you. I couldn't, it was like on the tip of my The tip of my tongue. I agree. Rashid made her feel worthless and unseen. And then the pressure that's put on her to be a mother, because that's really the only use they see for women in that, like servants and mothers, and it's just like, and it's like she can't catch a break, you know. He's isolating her just to keep her inside and to himself, and like she's a human being. And the way he started to treat her after she lost her child just made my blood boil. I agree. My heart was, I couldn't stop reading because I was just like, I need something. I need to know that there's something in this, that, because that was just devastating. And the poor thing like thinks it's all her fault, and you know, just devastating. In a weird way, I kind of identified with it, because that kind of belief is actually quite prevalent here in India as well. I'm exceptionally lucky to have a different upbringing, but I know some, Jordana, thank you again for sharing, who don't have that luxury. And that's the thing, like, this isn't, what I think is cool is when we take what we've read, as Rosende reads now, we take The Handmaid's Tale, who's warned us about situations like this, and then we look towards, I mean, remember, I'm always coming from the perspective of an American, and at times I try to really fight that, but with the state of what's happening here right now, where we're seeing different states ban drag shows but do nothing for gun violence. We're seeing states attempt to control the education and minimize what's allowed to be discussed in academic settings. When we see the fact that the Supreme Court overturned the rule to bodily autonomy, these are the first steps to our basic freedoms starting to really be stepped on, taken, and it's happening to women in this country where people pretend it's the best, that people pretend it's free. And it's like, we're seeing what the extremes of this happen and what societies where this happens for generations, and we're seeing and like it's also allowing us to see the growth of what we've achieved and why we can't let it slip. Yeah, sorry if I'm going too much into tangents. Just like I'm loving this book. I feel like seeing the reality of a lot of my clients really heavy, even though I'm so sorry. I finished the book last year, so I don't remember that much, but it made me really sad. Can't imagine such a life. Grateful to live in Germany. You see, and guys, that's what I want, though. I want us to imagine this life. Like, I know it's the natural thing for us to really feel a peace with where we are, but I want us to I don't know, I find myself saying, oh, I feel so bad, but then I'm like, no, I don't want to take that power away from them, and I want to see how they're doing it, because they're surviving. They're living life one day at a time. They're doing it, and that's a strength that I don't know, and I don't think I ever will. So there's a lot of that in there. I want to. It's a heavy book. Furthermore, I can feel intensive synesthesia while reading these descriptions. Wow, cool. The smell, atmosphere, weather. Those descriptions take you directly to the world presented by Hosseini. Wow. Now, for those that don't know, I know not a lot about synesthesia, but I know it's when you can hear sounds and then it relates to some sort of like visual, right? I know people that when they hear music, they see colors. That's really cool that this book is giving you that. And I have to agree, this book is immersive. Amy, the writing is so immersive for the reader that it makes you want to be able to meet Miriam and help her in some way, which just emphasizes her loneliness even more. I agree. I like that we're all having this impulse to help. Now we have to all figure out together what we can do. It seems like both Miriam and Layla not only have to fight their personal fate, but also society. Part 1, Journey of Loss and Corrosion of Miriam's Innocence. Yeah, she was very sheltered with her mother, which is another relationship we have to talk about. Whew, that poor girl. And then Jaleel, her dad, her biological father. Her ability to simply get up every day and keep going is a testament to her strength. I agree. It's titanic. She's incredible. Completely agreed. Alberto Miriam amazes me. Agreed. Eileen, women in the book endure. That's a good word. For someone in power, Miriam is incredible inner strength. Oh, Maddie, I'm sorry Instagram to get you. We're glad you're here. You made it. We haven't been on that long. Definitely rooting for them while reading. Yes. Honestly, she inspires me. Yeah. She definitely has a lot of strength, and I'm waiting for her to find that strength within herself and just defend herself. And she's barely given the space time to grieve either. I kept wanting her to catch a break, right? I know I'm very behind. I'm catching up. Drives her as well. I can't even begin to imagine the grief she's faced after multiple... Oh. Well, on the other hand, her mother, Nana, prepared her and warned her about the life of submissive wife. Like, she knew that fate would confront her one day. It was something that, in their circumstance, her being the... What's the word? Harami? Or Harami? Her being the bastard child sealed her fate as, like, never going to achieve. And while I just feel like the way her mother did it was so cruel. But I see how she's like, trust me, no matter how cruel I am, the world here is crueler to her. So she needs to be ready. That's an interesting thought. But then she called out Jaleel all the time, so maybe it seemed like cruelty, but she was being honest. Like, this guy is trying to serve himself more than you. And oh my gosh, the strength when she left and didn't look back. That's inhuman. That's inhuman. Who was it in the Bible that even looked back? And it was so human. Was it Ruth? She didn't even look back. No pillar of salt for her. Miriam's mother tells her the most important thing to learn is to endure, not go to school. Unfortunately, she's right. I relate to her in some spaces. It's heartbreaking and tough. She surely was strong enough, but I guess she was never taught to fight for herself. Well, there was no example of that. Yeah, she was. You're right. Miriam's mother, Nana, certainly took the term tough love to another level. I just want her to break free, and it doesn't help that everyone makes her feel guilty for the things she has no control over. She's trying to do her best, and it's never enough. I think it's sad that they know it's coming, that she knows that the life she has to, it's almost like constantly, there was almost a relief when it finally started, because you're like, everyone's talking about it. There are states introducing legislature to put women to death for having abortions. They're the pro-life states. I think it was Mississippi. There's a reason this book resonates so strongly. It's easier to swallow stolen human rights everywhere, elsewhere. We really need to read this book, even in Western countries where democracy is in danger, especially for women, for instance, abortion in the U.S. Yeah, and that's why we're going to read How Democracies Die, because it's like we're using a playbook. Thank you for highlighting that. Absolutely. Her life is so unlike that of women all over this country who live in a... It's not so unlike. And that's the thing, like what was just said above, that it's easier to swallow when it's other. You know? Oh, that's not us. Wow, so sad for them there. So I feel bad. It's like, well, we can be doing things here. We could be allowing equitable, like pushing for education. We have to keep those organizations alive. Because unfortunately, the people that think otherwise have a lot of money and a lot of fight for some reason. And we have to do the same. And we have to, it's one of these, I want it to be a call to action. That seems to you as well. Okay, cool. I don't pity them because I don't want to make them feel like the... Yeah, what I think is she's the Billie Eilish, because she has it too. Oh, wow, cool, I didn't know that. Jaleel makes my blood boil. Okay, I'm skipping down a little bit. Agree, we see all this. No, don't ever apologize. That's always welcome here. Thank you for your sharing. And this book is a lot about that. So if that's an impulse that people have, please don't feel... Remember, Rosende Reads is a safe space. And as long as we're respectful, we're allowed to please continue to share your opinions, thoughts, ideas, questions. That's what this group's about. And that's what this book should be about. If you never felt a call to action before, if all these other things you saw in the news that you felt maybe partisan or whatever felt too outside, but somehow this book pierces that and allows that in, hell yeah, that's the goal. So cool, let it come out. Whatever it's bringing out, let it. This is a space where we can do that. A woman who will be like a rock in a riverbed, enduring without complaint. Her grace not sullied, but shaped by the turbulence that washes over her. Wow, great quote. It's a curse. Harami is a curse word in India as well, and Hindi as well. Wow. No need to apologize. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I agree. Good, I'm glad we're all there. I think Jaleel's visits almost blinded her to her mother's honesty about him, and how her life would end up. Like she would never be able to fully believe Nana as long as Jaleel was visiting her. Because he was also presenting her with this fake life that was never really hers. He was never giving it to her, because if he was really giving it to her, she would live in his house with her mother as a real, but no, they were always others. So he was like, oh, I'm going to show you the beautiful life where my other daughters go to university. My other daughters don't get married away to strange men in a faraway place. My other daughters get to say they're my daughters proudly. All of these things that he was like, oh, look, not for you. No, but look, it's fine, but not for, And then when he finally was gone, that mask was like, he took it with him. So you're right. That's a very, very observant. I like that. She was so desperate for her father's love, she didn't realize she was getting the bare minimum. Scraps from Jaleel. Wow. It's extra sad that Miriam doesn't make friends with her other women in her neighborhood. She feels like she doesn't fit in when she's childless. Is this book about being trapped in marriage? Like she doesn't have a choice and rights? I mean, in general? I don't know if it's trapped in just marriage. I think it's a lot bigger than that, and how marriage can be a construct to trap women. I think, and it's a lot about what things societally, systemically are actually just traps for women, and things that we don't look at in Western culture or in other cultures, or things that we can turn a blind eye to, that are very present in other cultures that are like, oh wow, it still happens here. I mean, I don't want to think it's crazy to think that there are still arranged marriages and whatnot happening in the U.S., whether or not publicly known. Like, I wouldn't doubt that at all. I'm looking forward to read How Democracies Die. I'm excited. Jaleel makes me want to choose violence. Thank you for not. But I resonate with your impulse. I found it difficult to read some of it coming from an emotional, physical abuse. Brings nightmares. And I'm sorry. That must be very difficult. And again, I said this before we started reading, and I'll say this again. If one of our books ever gets to the point that your mental health comes in conflict with finishing the book, put the book down. Like, do not feel that you have to be a hero or strong or what. Again, your mental health, everyone in this, it's always a priority. It's never on the back burner. You know yourself best. Feel free to take breaks. Feel free to maybe step away. Feel free to join us in the next book. I hope you all know we can always do that. Remember, this place is supposed to be a supportive, creative environment where we can grow. That doesn't mean it has to be through pain. You can grow just as much through other things. So, thank you for sharing. And if anyone else feels similarly, maybe you guys can chat. But never feel like you have to continue. Thank you. I think Jaleel really did care about her, but he was more concerned with his public image and his other wives, and they wouldn't allow him to acknowledge her because it would bring them shame. And I think that's like the other side of these societal things, is they don't create just traps for women. They create traps for men. They create traps for everyone, where people can't act on how they feel. They have to serve some sort of image, some sort of ideal of masculinity, femininity, whatever, what other gendered things they can think of to like box people. And that's the problem. No one's really thriving in this society, in that sense, unless it's people that are really benefiting the dudes, you know? Because I do think his heart broke when she didn't look at him in that bus, and I don't know, man. The way he wouldn't, like, I feel like if Jaleel had stood up when she was at the table and the three wives were like, you're going to get married, you're going to meet the shoemaker named Rashid, you guys are going to live in Kabul on the other side of Afghanistan. I feel like if Jaleel said, no, she's my daughter, she's not doing that, they would have had to listen. And he didn't. I don't know. I felt like he has the power and privilege and he didn't use it for the good thing, you know? I don't know.
It's rarely the people in power who are trying to make change.
Yeah, it's rarely the people in power who are trying to make change. I agree, Tess. You should catch up so you can be in the next one.
I know.
Oh, my 88-year-old mother and I have been having amazing conversations based on both reading this book. And that's the thing, like, I read this book and I don't just think of women far away. I think of, like, the women even in my life, like my grandmothers, who options weren't there for them back then. I don't want to do the math, but like, you know, when they were growing up and what the role was expected of them and what was what they couldn't break out of, but how they each in every day found ways to kind of still be who they were and what the resilience. Like I'm looking at all the women in my life in a light that I'm like, gosh, like most men wouldn't survive a day. They wouldn't survive a day as a woman. They just don't have the strength. Like, they just don't have the ability to... They just wouldn't. They just have no idea. And, like, I think of my grandmothers constantly and how amazing they were. Like, these... Like, you know, they were both from the silent generation. That's what we call them. That time period that they were born in. The silent generation. Could you imagine? That's what your generation was called? I find it really sad she was in marriage and she was only 15. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, Maddie. Thank you. For Saudi Dictator was I right? This beautifully written, difficult to read. I had to constantly stop and come back. Too much at times. I agree. I read this book when I was 15 and now I'm 26 and it's really inspiring. I don't know if you guys have met Tariq. Yes. I've read ahead and have met him. I don't know if anyone else has met. That relationship is beautiful, but that whole other family that we get to meet, I can't wait to talk about them. I can't wait to talk about them. But next time, we're going to stick to this one, this family, this group, part one. Jalil was basically putting on a mask that he knew would make Miriam like him. He never cared about her or Nana, and it makes me sick to my stomach to know they were an obligation to him. I don't know. I agree. I was thinking about all the stuff I did when I was 15. All the things I've been able to do. So our society does not see women as anything other than property. Yeah. They made it look like her marriage to Rashid was her choice, but she was basically railroaded into by Jalil's wives, so they removed her choice. It was like, but it was also cool that she was like, you know, I'm not an idiot. Like, I know what you're doing. I also recognize the part where she was like, I also took note that marriage at this time was not good enough for their daughters. But she didn't say anything. She stayed quiet. She's amazing. In France, we used to welcome refugees from all over the world, but nowadays we reject refugees, even women with children from countries like Afghanistan. And I'm so sad and so angry about it. Got it. Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you for that, Alberto. Yes. 15-year-old and comparing to Miriam. 15 is particularly harrowing. Really makes you feel for her and the world she's growing up in. That's an interesting thought, but I don't think it's about better or worse. At the end of it, the damage is done. Jalil laid the foundation for it, and Rashid broke her down further. Yeah. As was, like, told by her mother that was going to happen. It's the same here. A country founded by people who came here to escape persecution no longer care about others. Mm-hmm. Hey, Tifkit, you made it! What I find interesting is that Hosseini doesn't show how unwell women feel in the patriarchal system, but also how lost Rashid is. No excuses, but we can see the emotional damage it imposes. Yeah. And on men. Yeah, it does impose emotional damage, and that's what I think we're recognizing now. We have this country run by a bunch of men who have no tools how to deal with their emotions. None. You were just told not to have them, but that's dumb. That's like, hey, you're a human, hold your breath. Don't breathe around here. You can't breathe. Stop breathing. But still be a human who has to do a bunch of stuff. You got to run around, but hold your breath. Impossible. But that's like the idea of masculinity. So like, it's just a bunch of adults who have the emotional intelligence of children who can't recognize that they should behave differently. You know, it's like, it's a horrible system. And then we give them all the power. It's crazy. And it's amazing that we can read a book and see all of these things. Because it's not what we're living in. It's somewhere else. So now it's allowing us to turn the mirror on ourselves. It's pretty cool. Brag all the time about he knows as wrong as if rich. Huh. All right, I'm scrolling down because I know I'm really behind comments. Oh, yeah, I've met a bunch of dudes that want second moms. Yeah, that's what I call it. They just want another mom. They're like, oh, wow, I'm an adult, but I can't, like, do anything. I need a mom again. Your father didn't even try. Yeah, so heartbreaking. You're good, Maddie. No worries. Also, yeah, quick thing in case anyone's new, because I know we haven't had a book meeting in a while and we might have a lot of new members. If you don't really feel like you want to share, but you want to be a part, that's cool. We're cool with listeners. We're cool people chilling. We're talking about Tariq, but I'm trying not to because it's not time. Okay, thank you, Paula. This is the quote. It did not escape Miriam that no mention was made of her half-sisters, both her own age, students with plans to enroll in university. 15, evidently, was not a good, solid marrying age for them. She's so smart. Like, she's so smart. Patriarchy hurts men by restricting their emotional freedom. It hurts everyone. It's not a good system. What's admirable is how... Thank you, Matt. See you soon. What is admirable is how Miriam always sees the good side in people, how deeply she analyzes the basis of Rashid's actions, his miserable past, even though he surely never meant to do any good. He shows us the social position of women and femininity in real life in backward Islamic countries. Two women with different backgrounds symbolizing a mother-daughter relationship. Yeah, that's something we talk about more in the next part because we see a different relationship and we see a different family unit. Although he does talk about them, the teacher, the mousy teacher, and his wife, who he gives too much freedom, lets her run around with no burqa. Like a compass needle that points north, a man's accusing finger always finds a woman. Always. Did you hear that one, Tess?
I didn't.
Like a compass needle that points north, a man's accusing finger always finds a woman. Always. And the countries which persecute women are the same as persecute... Oh, of course. I'm only listening, but I love this topic. It's an incredible book. You should definitely check it out. Read it on your own time. Oh, really quickly, I wanted to toss in this idea. I know for some of our always, I don't know what to call us, our OG readers and then our new readers, we've always talked about this too. Reading doesn't have to be just reading. You could listen to audiobooks if that's easier. I know as someone who gets visually distracted sometimes, audiobooks are way better. And the audiobook for this is read by, I don't know her name, but she is incredible, and I think the audiobook is incredible. I listened to the next 2 bits that we'll be reading on the audiobook, and she's done just a fantastic job, especially when it comes to speaking either the Pashto or the Farsi. She does a great job at speaking it. So I highly recommend it, if that's for anyone. Now to continue. Oh yeah, given a proper education, she would have left everyone in the dust. I completely agree. OG readers. Audio is great for walks. If anyone is doing the New Year thing where they're like, I'm going to get fit this year, audiobooks are great at the gym. That's where I tend to listen to them the most because it helps me not focus on the workout because Nuno's kicking my ass lately. But then I get to do 2 things at once. And although sometimes I'm resting and I'm just listening and I'm like, wow. And I know people are walking by thinking I look crazy because I'm just staring. Wow. It's not as great. Cool. So I want to talk about another thing. Let me just look them up. Why is this backwards and upside down? Oh, so the page that I opened to is when right before she leaves Jalil with Rashid on the bus and she's talking to him. Jalil looked down and like an overgrown child dug at something with the toe of his shoe. You were ashamed of me. I'll visit you, he muttered. I'll come to Kabul and see you. Well, no, she said. Don't come. I won't see you. Don't you come. I don't want to hear from you ever. Ever. He gave her a wounded look. It ends here for you and me. Say your goodbyes. Don't leave like this, he said in a thin voice. You didn't even have the decency to give me the time to say goodbye to Mullah Faizullah. I love that she was no. And that was the first time we saw her stand up to him too. Was when she was I want to use profanity. She was shut up. We're done. Get out. Cut him off. It was amazing, but heartbreaking because that was her father, I think Nana should have explained their situation better, the way she behaved in Miriam blind to reality and believing all the things her father told her. Yeah, she did push her away with her aggression with that. And then the emotional manipulation at the end. She chose her father. She that's the other thing is her mother never took the chance to say obviously she would want this. I think she's dumb for wanting this, but she would want this. So when she makes that decision, and then what her mother does, I'm trying not to spoil it for Tessa because she's in the room.
Sorry.
No, not your fault.
You can spoil
such emotional manipulation. That's such a toxic relationship. Um, Maria would have loved to see that. And when he goes like, your brain is empty, there's no information in it, I was literally screaming as if y'all have ever bothered to explain anything to her. Oh my God, that pissed me off so much. It's a different part I'm thinking about in the part of April 1978. So I won't talk about it yet. But those moments where anyone, mostly men, accuse the women of knowing nothing but refuse to explain. Like, refuse to listen. Or the moment when he's like, you made the rice bad. As if he could make fucking rice. You know? As if he could do anything for himself. Like, I'm surprised that he didn't have a wife for so long. You know? That guy, I'm so mad about it. I went with the ebook this time and discovered that I prefer the hard copy. Okay, that's a good thing to know. I like having both because I like having it in the library, and then I like having the ability to continue reading regardless of where I am. Oh, I forgot my book. That's okay. I have my phone and headphones. I'm good. For the first time, Miriam could hear him with Nana's ears. How cool was that? When he broke... That was such a great line. Thank you for bringing that up. Mullah Fazullah was her only loving parental figure. I said what I said. I agree, dude. He was the only person that gave her things with no expectation. Gave her knowledge. Gave her kindness. Gave her love. Gave her space. Allowed her to explore. Like, he was the only person that, like, saw her. With no expectations of anything in return, too. I agree, Jordan. I'm on your team there. I used to worship you. That line, She stood up for herself, and how hard that must have been to do that to your father, and he still doesn't understand the pain he's causing. Can't wait to know what Tessa's opinions are of this book. I know, me too. No, Anna Catherine, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. I hated how he acted like he was wronged in the situation. Right? Don't leave like this. Don't leave like this. I wanted to jump in. I imagine, like, Medea from, Tyler Perry's Medea going off on him, being like, leave like this, I would have stayed. I thought I was coming to stay over. You didn't even let me inside. You made me spend the night on the fucking street, bro. I was so mad. I was like, how dare he do this to her? And everyone knew who she was. And that he was making her sleep outside. Oh, that poor girl. Oh my God. That sent me over. I got mad. I'm sorry. I keep on trying to type out my thoughts today and feel like I can't get them into a cohesive sentence in the word count limit. Amy Lumsden, just start typing them, sending them out, and we'll make sense of it. I can make sense of it as it comes out. And if it can, I'll just tell you. I'll be like, yo, Amy Lumsden, that made no sense. So you're good. Go ahead. Try it. Go for it. He wanted to educate Miriam. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was brilliant too, and I feel bad she never got to say goodbye. And then you pop in and say, hell no. Exactly, right? Like, the whole time I was like, gosh, I want that energy right now. She came in to stay. She was given a storage room in the attic. Like, oh my God. Oh, hey, Lexi, you made it. I'm glad you stopped by. But it was Jaleel that made her sleep outside. It was the other wives. It doesn't matter. In that society, it's Jaleel's house. They want all the power. Take the responsibility. That's it. You want to have all the power? You have to take all the responsibility. End of discussion. Like, I'm sorry, I just imagine him being like, my wives made me. In that society, shut up, bro. No one makes you do anything, especially your wives, like, that you don't educate, that you don't, you know what I mean? No. I refuse to accept it. You want the power, you take the responsibility. End of story. Any man in the book. I actually told my dad that I was so blessed to have him. At 15, he said to me, get the best education you can get. Work at something you love so you never have to depend on a man. And he's 91. Amazing. I think we all love your dad. Right, guys? Like, I think we're all in. He just uses excuses. Exactly. Exactly. Just crazy. Yeah, your dad sounds awesome. I think it's important to highlight how women in Afghanistan could have access to privilege based on their social status and relationships to men. Wandering Dreamer 3, thank you. Incredible pointing that out. And remember, when Miriam got to the city for the first time was when she saw women with makeup, in skirts, driving cars, smoking cigarettes, women that had ability. So she did have a moment where she was able to say, whoa, what's different here? Why do they get to do these things? Incredible. And it's also just, as an American, I always have to come back to this. It's crazy seeing what our empire did when it tried to move in on Afghanistan, and how, like every other one, it crumbled. It didn't do it. Couldn't do it. And then seeing the state of where women are now in Afghanistan, again, under the Taliban. We have the chance to go to school and study, and sometimes we don't realize how lucky we are. Yeah. I didn't even feel I have functioning brain. My grandpa taught me never to depend on a man. My job, my money, my house, my life, not a man's property. Amen. Good. With great power comes great responsibility. Maddie, oh my God, that's hilarious. But seriously, it does. Deal with it. Like, all right, we're about, what, 13 minutes out? 13? We started at like 12:04, 12:05. We're almost around the 10-minute mark. What else? Thank you for bringing that up, because that's such an interesting thing. How does everyone feel about that? Like, because that's one thing. Like, the only way to get privilege was to have to like. Wow, thank you for pointing that out. But I have to say, the parts where we can we talk about this really quickly, because I thought this was an incredible moment. The moment that Rashid is like, all right, Miriam Joe, you've had your week. Here's your burqa. I expect you to wear it. What, bro? Wow. But then the interesting thing was how it freed her. That confused me. What did you all think of that? How, when she first started wearing the burqa, she found a peace in it. It freed her from being the harami of Jalil. It freed her from being the girl from the small town. It freed her from all expectations of who she had to be, or any fears she had of who she was, any shame. It freed her. And I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. That my assumption would be, wow, like, I felt angry when he made her wear that. I was mad. But then she was like, actually, this felt good.
Because you're confident in who you are.
Yeah, but it was just a moment that I didn't expect to have. I didn't expect to say, whoa. That is something that for her I can see was a thing. And it was just something that I think this book does make you do, is like, we can't forget that a lot of the things we do know about Afghanistan, about Islamic culture, about, especially, I apologize for this because I know it's annoying, but coming from the perspective I have been taught and I'm trying to learn to see out of, they tell you so many bad things about Afghanistan. They tell you so many things, and that was a moment where I was like, oh, I know what the goal of this is, and I'm not going to lose sight that this is just an oppressive tool, but it's interesting that there was something in it that was positive for her, even if it were for a moment, like a shield. Yeah. I just never thought of that. And I think that's one thing we all have to constantly do when we're reading, is question our assumptions, question our thoughts, and try to understand where they're coming from and why. Not because they're wrong or right, just because it's cool to know why you think a certain way and what it is, to what it would be like. And I agree. The fact that she had to learn how to walk in a burqa because it's harder to walk. I didn't know that either. It's just a mask. Yeah. False sense of freedom. It is. Cool. Every kind of disguise can help in a world you are not accepted. We should not forget that any kind of covering can be a good thing if women choose to wear them themselves. Very well said, Miriam. Very, very well said. Love that. I get it. It freed her because Nana was always talking about gossip and pointing fingers and that way being covered. Miriam didn't feel like people knew all her secrets anymore. Yeah. My parents grew up in Kuwait, and the women couldn't even walk anywhere without a male family member accompanying them, among other hard rules. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, in that type of society, nobody has I feel like I wouldn't want that. I'd want Tessa to be able to walk anywhere. It's just like, it was a time. I'd be so, like, gosh. They make rules that make it difficult for everyone. He gave her no option. She couldn't say no. It was hard because in her perspective, I think she was just trying to erase her past, and I guess that helped. But for me, it was upsetting. It was still upsetting. It was still, I'm not out here rooting for that. It was still very upsetting. It was just a moment that made me go like, oh, whoa. I hope that it doesn't come off, nope, because she wore it. I hope that it doesn't come off wrong. She deserved the choice to wear it. No, I agree. She deserves that choice. Eric says, hi, good night, send to bed now. Oh, thanks, Eric. Thanks for stopping in. I always think it would be very hot wearing it too. Hold on one sec. Siri, stop. Yo, Siri on my iPad started talking. Do you have anything to say about the book? And again, I have Muslim friends who have to wear the burqa, especially in public. Would they be comfortable or would you be comfortable sharing more of what that experience is? Are they in an environment where at times they get to dress as they wish and other times they know it's safe to dress that way? What are the things that they are confronted with? I would... That's a perspective I don't have, and I'd love to just learn more about that. If you feel comfortable, and if they do, I never want to put anyone on the spot. So thank you for sharing. Creepy Siri, right? It's like, the Victorian belief that viewing a woman's ankles would drive men mad. Crazy. I'm trying not to show Stella's little litter box there. Because I'm like, that's not a very nice thing to see. But wild, right? All right, so we're on our last 5 minutes. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining for our first discussion of 1,000 Splendid Suns. We read up to part 1. Now for the next part, we want to read about somewhere between 50 to 75 pages. Because we're at part 2. Oh, perfect. We're going to read part 2. Perfect. It's 75 pages. It's exactly 75 pages. All good, Mariana. Don't worry. Stella's chair. Yeah, I can show you Stella's chair real quick. Everyone, while I've been doing this live and just sitting here, Tessa has been tidying up our apartment and cleaning. Like the amazing partner that she is.
I'm gonna take her.
Wait, no, everyone wants to see her in her little chair. So hold on, me.
Moving her forward.
Okay, let's see her little chair that she's always in now. Okay, so back to business. We will read part 2, all of part 2. Read part 2 for their next discussion. That will be next Sunday. I'm just catching up on comments. Perfect. Queen Stella. Yes, so we will read part 2 of our next of 1,000 Splendid Suns. We will continue discussing. Again, everyone, I just want to reiterate this one last time. The content of this book is very heavy. And if it just gets to be too much, if you feel like, I just need a break, if something happens, you're like, just take a break. It can be heavy. It can be triggering. There's a lot of domestic violence and other violence, emotional abuse. It's not an easy book. This is one of the hardest books we've read. So again, if anyone's just joining now, just take it easy, relax. That's why we're reading shorter chunks, so that's less to digest. And I'll see you guys next Sunday. Thank you, Lexi, taking a moment for the sweater. Tessa made me get it.
Okay.
Because she was like, you should get the sweater. I was like, I don't know. And then I put it on. I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So again, we thank the ever brilliant Tessa for this. So there's that. So everyone, thank you so much. This was such a fun discussion. Like, I had such a great time, and I as heavy and as difficult and challenging as this book is, I'm having an incredible time reading it and discussing with all of you. So thank you so much. Tessa, everyone's supporting your pushing of me to get this sweater.
This looks so good.
Yeah.
I didn't like the collar at first.
I just didn't know. I always listen to Tessa. I've learned that. I just listen to Tessa. You're probably going to get off better than you thought you would. So if I listened to myself, it wouldn't have worked out. So
That's not true.
it would have. So yes, as you perambulate into this next week, let's just take what we're reading, and unfortunately, there will be many of examples of these thoughts that can come from this book as you walk around. But one thing that this book made me do was kind of like challenge my assumptions of things. So I think this next week, as we continue to read and continue to go on, let's just keep doing that. Let's just stay open. So as you move into this next week, continue learning, continue growing, continue challenging things, continue asking questions, and continue to be positive forces of change. It's difficult. You have to be open and kind to people, and I constantly struggle with being kind to mean people, but I don't want to be mean, so I'd rather just take that than be mean. It's way heavier for me to be mean than it is just to be nice and let them deal with their shit, their problems. So continue to be positive forces of change. Enjoy your weeks. I will see you all next week, and I will post that closer to the day. Just Sunday at around 10 a.m. PST, probably around this time. You can, for the people in Australia and such, you can count on that around this time Sunday. Bye guys. Have a good week.